Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Trizeal Remix. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Triangle Service, Trizeal released to arcades in 2004. It would receive a notable port to the Dreamcast in 2005. Then in 2016, Trizeal Remix released for the PC, and now in June of 2025, Trizeal Remix is available for the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. This title is an excellent vertical scrolling shoot 'em up that has a transformation mechanic that allows you to go and change weapons. It's a lot of fun to play with, and overall I've really enjoyed my time with this game. If you like other Triangle Service titles such as Trizeal, I definitely recommend checking out this title. With all that said, we find ourselves at the main menu, so if you've played other Triangle Service games, you know what to expect. As you complete the game, you'll unlock additional score attack stages here. We also have some achievements, and one of the things I really like about this release is this developer commentary. So you have commentary from the programmer here that provides more information about the game itself, as well as the company Triangle Service. So definitely, if you want to dive into the history of this title, that's a great way to do so. With all that said, as we start the game itself, you see here that we have the screen in the middle here. The game does have 3 credits, and that's one of the things I do have a little bit of confusion on. So I've been searching to see if there's ways to unlock additional credits, and at this point there's some conflicting information. So I honestly don't know if you can. But with all that said, you do have some really nice information on the left and right sides of the screen. So as I mentioned, the game has a transformation mechanic where you change your weapons, and you can see the whole order of that there on the left, as well as your buttons. And on the right, each button that you have bound, you can see what it goes and does, so I really do appreciate that. And the game itself is pretty basic, but I do like that if you change your key mappings, that it changes as well on that display. The game does support 2-player simultaneous, so that is how we'll be showing the game off to you today. Starting the game, we have a nice little launch sequence where you get into the cockpit of the fighter itself, and then we launch from our mothership. So as far as the overall presentation of the game, Trizeal is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, and as you can definitely see that here from this particular presentation, I have increased the screen region a little bit from its default, so keep that in mind. Stage 1, cloudy today again. So as far as the overall mechanics, Trizeal is a relatively straightforward vertical scroller. We have our shot button, and we also have a bomb. But there's that unique element of transformation that I was talking about. So you can see the order there. You'll always be moving through your transformations in the same way. So we start with our wide shot. Then you transition to your missile, which is a homing missile, and it's actually really fun to just go use the homing missile in my opinion. And lastly, we have the one that's the most powerful, your boss killer, the laser. So one of the things that's really neat is if you're playing with 2 players, the 2 ships, in addition to having different colors, also have a completely different look. So that's really neat to be able to go and see the way that the player 1 ship looks versus the player 2 ship. And if you're interested in sticking around later, there's also a 3rd ship that you can unlock for the game itself, and I'll tell you towards the end how to unlock that ship. So as you play through the stages, we'll be collecting power-ups that will power up our weapons that we're actively using, and you can power up each weapon from level 1 all the way up to level 5. If you get a weapon to level 4 or above, when you swap to a different weapon, you'll still be using a somewhat weaker version of the weapon that you had equipped. So if you have the laser, for example, to level 4 or level 5, and then you swap to the wide, you'll still be firing the laser. It's a really neat mechanic, and I like what we have there as far as incentive to power up all your weapons rather than just pick one. So as I mentioned, the laser itself is definitely your best boss killer weapon. That's what you want to use for the boss, and you'll, especially if it's fully powered, you'll definitely melt through the bosses. The bosses themselves are actually a lot of fun as they're all multi-stage. So we have one life bar that we've already gone through for the boss, and now we find ourselves onto the third form already. So one thing about playing it with 2 players is it does greatly increase your firepower, so you have more screen coverage. In addition to that, you can also do a lot more damage to the bosses themselves. Now with the boss down, we've got our stage clear, and then we get our points based off of how many of the enemies we cleared, so our destroy rate, remaining bombs, and lastly, that total is added to our score. At 900,000 and 2.7 million, you will get extends, and where the game has limited continues, those can be very important, so keep that in mind. Now moving on to the second stage. So if you watched even the beginning of the developer commentary, there's you can learn a lot about the secrets of this stage, and that's one of the things that's really neat about the Triangle Service games and this particular title, Trizeal, is there are a lot of secrets spread out through the course of the game. A lot of the overall achievements do go and allude to that, so it gives you ideas and things to go and try for. But if you're going through this stage, there's actually quite a few secrets that you can potentially unlock. So coming up, there'll be the chance to go and get a bomb. There's an enemy that will go and throw rocks at your ship that you can go and bounce off your ship to gain additional points. And along the lines of points, let's talk a little bit about that. So you might have noticed that as we're defeating enemies, they're dropping these point items. And if we're catching them, then the values of those point items will continually increase until we get up to 1,000 points. In addition to that, there's also other challenges that we can complete for other big points. So in the first stage, there's a section where if you defeat all the enemies, you'll both earn a lot of extra points, and you'll also unlock an extra section where you're fighting some harder enemies that will both help you power up to a very strong level, as well as unlock a lot of additional points. Throughout the course of the gameplay as well, there'll also be situations where we'll be able to go and pick up extra bombs like this one, and the bombs themselves, it's a little on the slow side, but you do initially get a little bit of a shield while you're using your bomb. So do keep in mind though that it does take just a couple seconds to go off, so you do want to prepare as best as possible for that eventuality. So one thing to note, when you do lose a life, you are reverted all the way back to your base power. And although that's quite devastating, you do drop a couple power-ups when you do lose a life. So you can power up a little quickly, but it does still take a little while to get up to full power from when you go and lose your life at the beginning of the game itself. And now that we're complete with stage 2, let's talk a little bit about my minus flavor. So there's really just 2 things that I have with the game itself. One is just my own frustration, confusion with not being able to go and find any information of whether or not you could extend your continues with the title itself. That's less a problem with the game itself and more just with the overall information that's available for the title itself. And then there's also just that slight issue with powering down when you lose a life. It'd be great if you would only go and lose 1 or maybe 2 levels of your weapon rather than setting all the way back to base power. But on the plus flavors concerned, the game itself is a really solid vertical scroller shoot 'em up with some great patterns, and then you have that transformation mechanic that allows you to really power up and feel quite strong overall with your gameplay. It's just as long as you're not losing the lives throughout the course of your runs. It's definitely one of those mechanics that just feels really satisfying to get up to the point where, in addition to going and firing the weapon you currently have selected, you also have missiles and lasers or whatever selection you happen to have chosen. And then the last thing that I really like about the title is just how it's full of fun secrets. So as I mentioned, when there is a third ship that you can unlock to play, and it's one from one of Triangle Service's other titles, 12 Stack. So when you're at the title screen, if you press right once, then left twice, and on a Nintendo Switch controller, the B button a total of 12 times, then you'll unlock that ship that you can play, and it has different mechanics, so it can go and add a different element to your overall gameplay. So definitely, Trizeal the Remix is a solid recommend from the chef. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.